welcome you tonight for our Residency Lab with Veronica, Petukov and Samm, with our fantastic curator and moderator Elizabeth Richardson. So let me quickly give you some insight about the technicalities. At the bottom of your screen, you should have your raised hands. So that will allow you to jump on stage and ask your question live with us. Otherwise, on the right side of your screen, you should have the chat, and the general chat is to chat with everyone in the room, or you have your table chat. So you can have private chat with the participant within your room. Okay, some disappeared. Hello. And so, so let's start. Yeah, yes.
Yes, I ran away for a second.
Yeah, no worries. So, hello and welcome everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this new iteration of the Agora talk. I'm very happy to welcome you tonight for this Residency Lab, led and curated by Elizabeth Richardson. Let me introduce you properly, Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a recent MA Art, History and Museum Curating graduate from the University of Sussex, where she also received a degree in BA English and Art History. Her research centers on the politics of archival absences and memory. She is also interested in sustainable and inclusive curatorial practice. And during her time as a student at the University of Sussex, Elizabeth developed a passion for art journalism, and she undertook a number of writing and editorial roles as a student-led publication. She is now an art writer and is open to new projects and collaboration. So welcome, Elizabeth, for your first Agora event. Hand it over to you.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mimi, for your kind introduction. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm so glad you could join us this evening. I'm really excited to be in conversation with S.Anga and Veronica Petukov today about their residency lab with Agora. It's been a pleasure getting to know Samm and Veronica over the last month and being able to experience their project throughout its process of evolution. Veronica Petukov is a digital artist and VJ. She's a student at Grey School of Art in Aberdeen, where she's studying a degree in contemporary art practice. Veronica has been in many live events, created videos for popular DJs, and has featured on digital art platforms and exhibitions. She's also a part of the techno collective Mon Ami and mixes live visuals for electronic music nights. Veronica's art practice merges aspects of club culture and electronic music with her unique glitchy style visuals and videos. Inspired by the Dada compositional strategies of ready-mades, Veronica's work manipulates existing footage and GIFs, corrupting their data in order to give these files a new life or story. Her research currently focuses on social media curation, filters, and selfies, looking into how these elements impact self-esteem. S.Anga is a multimedia artist whose storytelling comes to life through composing and producing music, performing, and filmmaking. He holds a degree in English and Music Studies from Aberdeen University and is now studying a Master's in Sound Arts at the London College of Communication. Samm has a background in composition and jazz and has scored a number of independent short films, produced music for artists, and has set his music to spoken word and audio theatre pieces for the BBC. He's also the co-founder of Aberdeen-based multidisciplinary arts collective Re-Analog, which hosted a series of literature and music performance events between 2017 and 2020. At the moment, Samm's practice and research is focused on the sound identity of global decay, questioning the collision of sounds in nature and urban life. This is the second time that Samm and Veronica have been creative collaborators. They previously worked together during Subliminal, Re-Analog's 2020 festival, where Veronica mixed the visuals for Samm's live set performance. Their residency project, entitled Capsule.io, is a personal response to the events and emotions of 2020. This response emerges as a digital time capsule that explores the informational terrain of a year that has been shaped by a pandemic. Capsule.io exists both as an audio-visual installation and an Instagram-based virtual gallery. The project's installation merges spoken reactions to 2020, arranging them alongside Samm's experimental ambient soundscapes and Veronica's signature glitchy style visuals. Their talk with Agora today is called Augmenting the Norm. I'm delighted that Samm and Veronica will be introducing Capsule.io to us, as well as sharing how collaborating during a lockdown has meant adapting their practices to find creative digital solutions. I'll now hand over to you, Samm and Veronica, and we'll follow their presentation with a Q&A.
Thank you so much, Liz. So Samm is going to play the presentation and we're going to talk. There we go.
Yes, thank you, Liz. Just making sure it's working for me. Feel free to full screen it if you need to. It's probably much nicer to look at than our faces. So we decided to call our talk Augmenting the Norm and focus it around accessibility in the future of digital art. Because I guess what we realized was the biggest difference between when we last collaborated at the start of 2020 versus the end of it was that, you know, the first collaboration we had access to performance spaces, huge walls we could project onto, people that could come, huge speakers, you know, alcohol, I don't know, it was just like a crazy night. And essentially the very type of thing that is illegal right now. And at the time when we started, we also had to deal with not being able to go into spaces that we would ordinarily have access to use kind of high-end technology. And obviously we can't afford them ourselves because we're students. So the whole residency was kind of us being really creative and experimenting with cheaper or just quicker kind of more immediate ways of getting things that we wanted, as opposed to crying about what we didn't have.
Yeah, and so we started thinking about what was really going on during those years. And obviously the pandemic happened and there were protests, and we thought this was all connected also to other things. So during the world, there's during like humanity, there's this cyclical repetition as things keep happening. So we thought we would talk about the pandemic and everything that was happening connected to the past as well. And this is us just talking. You'll see screenshots of our conversations. I basically went and found ready-made videos because that's what I do. I do like a Dadaist type of way. I corrupt footage that I find online, and that was a 3D scan of Samm, because in the beginning I thought that I wanted to do a 3D scan of his face and have it somewhere in the video. When we continuously changed the project, it was evolving all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, and when we conceptualize it, what we found really interesting were the kind of similarities, striking similarities between the 1918 pandemic and the 2020 pandemic, like, you know, wear a mask, all those kind of slogans, and advertising like Bell telephones, which I guess now what was advertised this time around was Zoom as the way to keep connected to your family and friends. And yeah, kind of how all these really striking similarities over such a long period of time, the protests, the fires, you know, the civil unrest, which was rampant throughout last century as well with the civil rights movement. And it really made us question kind of the concept of time and whether or how much things actually change once you look at kind of the bigger scale of things.
So what you're hearing right now is Samm's recording, because we thought of interviewing people and Samm was recording and I was editing videos. So you'll see Adobe Premiere Pro and just ready-made.
Yeah. Recordings yet? Just double checking. Okay. Because I can still see the text and my 3D face, which is...
Oh.
Yeah. I'm just making sure that we're still synced in at the same time.
I saw just the footage just now, you know, that the one we edited.
Okay.
So yeah, that was like the initial thought. So basically we went from, oh, it's going to be a video piece with audio made by Samm, into continuously progressing into different things. So we even started writing things down, and we started doing 3D and augmented reality because we wanted to use it a lot as well. And so it just continuously changed.
Yeah. I've changed how I'm sharing my screen, so this should be better. So of course the process, and the process, one of the things we discussed was me interviewing people, which I thought was really interesting, the idea of kind of talking to people about what had changed from the start to the end of the year. And I was able to get some really cool friends all the way from Colombo, Sri Lanka to Aberdeen, Scotland, talk about kind of the huge differences, which you can kind of hear a little bit of now.
I can hear the other video. I don't know why, Sam. But yeah, you will see also the 3D extrusion is basically what I started doing. So I took a screenshot of the developing video that we were doing, and we were sending it back and forth to each other. So it was changing all the time. And then I thought I really want to do an augmented reality piece. So I took a screenshot and I went into Photoshop. And for those who don't know, you can basically 3D extrude and it automatically does a 3D extrusion for you. So that's how everything was born. So the orb and the capsule and everything was born from Photoshop 3D extrusions.
Yeah. Yeah, and essentially we wanted to work in layers. We started off trying not to think too complex, and instead of trying to throw layers and layers of complex theory and work, we kind of threw layers of simplicity that in the end became something really complex, only because of the full period of time of growth and flexibility that we allowed it to have. We ended up, I hope you can see the text on my screen. That was one of the last things that we did, was have these kind of textual responses to the work, so that it wasn't just kind of video with music on it. It was this conceptual object that was now existing in this three-dimensional form, which we could react to as a conduit of memories and events, and in a way that isn't kind of cliche, like, ooh, this is what happened in January, February. It was a way that just captured the emotions in a more abstract form. Let me just move forward. And this is Veronica's amazing Italian poem, which she will perform for us at the end of the talk.
I'll try.
So we also like the idea of trying as much as we could not to make it, super just all based in the Western world, even though the pandemic really began in 2019. So to talk about 2020 is already kind of westernizing it. And so having different languages to make it not so Anglo-centric was really cool. We had a bit of German in terms of the journal responses to it. And we wanted there to be space for lots of different people to contribute towards, what would end up being just like this mammoth thing that would ideally, live on the internet for as long as it's allowed to. And yeah, so the execution was a big issue, because now we had all these different media forms, and we found a few problems with, I think Veronica tried it first with Mozilla Hubs.
Yeah, so Mozilla Hubs was just not happy, obviously, because we couldn't access facilities and stuff, we had to use our computers, and it just was not happy with it. We tried everything. We were looking online for a lot of virtual places, and Mozilla Hubs was just not cooperating. So we started thinking about different stuff. You were using the Kunst gallery one as well, but that wasn't working. Oh, that's an
accurate representation of my computer's reaction to Mozilla.
Yeah.
Or just any type of virtual hosting platform where it just overheated and the fan was going crazy. And we, again, in terms of accessibility, if for the creators this was an issue, we knew that for people trying to experience the work, it would definitely be a problem as well. So we wanted to think about a way that we could show it that didn't have to introduce anything new to people, but used what they would already be using on a day-to-day basis. And obviously, the most obvious way to do this would be to use social media, which is what we ended up doing.
Yeah, social media was the best option for us after struggling for months or days, wondering what we're going to do and how to use augmented reality and what app is going to work and how the people are going to see it. And because we're doing it about accessibility, we thought, well, social media is the best platform, and you can upload augmented reality filters on it, which we'll talk about later, but it was the best option.
Yeah, because with augmented reality, it's fine if it's photographs. So lots of like Kunstmetrics was a really cool app that we had. You could get an augmented.ai app on your phone, and you can just like look around and have images in your home. But once you try to put videos on it, it doesn't like that at all. And the only way that we found to do it was to have, everyone wear little glasses to watch the video and be immersed in it, which sadly, you know, we don't have the funds for yet. And obviously live streaming is another option as well that we're still considering to do. So I think for the final form of the video, we're planning a date to live stream it and just kind of leave it up for, you know, possibly 24 hours to just kind of loop back and forth and give space for people to really just get immersed in the different sonic and visual qualities of the work. Yeah, so this is our attempt to with the app to kind of do, I mean, we were able to put kind of 3D looking items in the space and images and paintings and my dodgy 2D my dodgy 3D face scan that I did on my phone. But yeah, when we tried to do videos, it just wasn't allowing it at all. And again, that pushed us to kind of just think, okay, what's a creative way that we can do this? And Veronica had the really cool idea of creating an Instagram filter that you can just automatically have in whatever space you're in.
Yeah, sorry, no, I was just going to say that I even had to like download Blender and Spark AR, which are augmented reality apps, and I never thought I would use them programs. And I just started doing all these crazy 3D things, which was really cool.
Yeah, and using Audacity, which I thought was really cool, just kind of unconventionally using free platforms to data mosh.
Yeah. So like looking for programs at home to use on my slow MacBook, I had to find an option to do data bending and data moshing, which is like glitching and corrupting files. And I found tutorials online, so anyone can do it. You can import a video file into Audacity, which becomes a waveform. So you're basically editing a waveform, but it's a video. So you can add like echo, treble, you know, all the audio effects. And when you export it, it's glitched video. So I thought that was really cool.
Very meta, very meta. I like it. I mean, Audacity was one of the first things I ever used as a kid. I'd buy like a cheap £1 microphone and plug it in and, you know, record little karaoke songs. And it's interesting to think a program like that, the depths that you could achieve when you just kind of almost bend it to your will, you know, especially out of desperation because of our little cute little computers that can only do so much.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd like to show you a little bit of the work and the development of it, and then I guess we'll round it up and open up for questions. So yeah, these videos will just kind of show how it started and the final conception of it, which is very abstract, but it'll be cool to see once you've actually seen what the original images were.
So I'm just unmuted because I think it's on mute now.
I'll turn that up. Thank you.
I don't think I can hear anything.
You can't hear it? Okay. Can you still not hear it?
Vaguely.
All right, I'll whack up my volume.
The beauty of doing stuff online.
And this is the final beast.
So the layers of editing, we just went from something you can recognize as people and ready-made videos, and it just became this particle monster.
And I like the idea that you can kind of look within it and almost make out shapes. You can obviously make out there's people there, but it's not quite as clear as the original video was, which we definitely wanted to have that kind of vagueness to it so that we could evoke an emotion without completely just showing what was happening. And yeah, at this point, I could still recognize so much stuff in it, but that's only because I've seen the footage 100 times, same as Veronica, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well,
I guess
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that insight into your collaboration and process. And it was, of course, really exciting to see that preview of your installation. So we're going to now start the Q&A conversation, and I encourage anyone to share their questions in the chat box.
We've already got one beautiful question. /2, weigh in.
Okay. Well, shall I start with my questions or
yes.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd just start the conversation by asking what reflections you have on your two different collaborative processes, you know, as Capsule.io is now the second time that you've worked together, and what challenges did you face whilst working on this residency project during a pandemic?
Well, so obviously the first time we met, me and Sam had a coffee in Costa together, and we sat for 3 hours discussing the project, while now we had to deal with Zoom and, you know, things not working and lags and all that. So that was already a bit difficult for us, but obviously we made it. It was an interesting experience. I think it taught us a lot. We learned a lot from it. We started using different programs. We started, you know, developing our project in different ways. Obviously, it was hard because we weren't able to access university facilities, for example, because we dealt with like 2 lockdowns while we were trying to do this residency. So it was a bit difficult in the beginning. We had these crazy ideas like make a 3D world where you put an AR headset and, you know, all these things that we couldn't just do, you know, with our really slow computers at home while we're crying in a corner. Because it just wasn't
waiting for the renders while you're trying
to... exactly, the renders. We just had to adapt.
Yeah, and I got COVID halfway through where I was just like, all my motivation and productivity just went downhill. So we thought it would be really clever to actually react to the process, as well as, instead of just kind of powering through to the product, incorporating these kind of obstacles that we were facing as well into the work itself, as part of the process, documenting it with text messages and screen recordings of our process, and showing things that we'd originally decided to throw away, like my dodgy 3D face scan, and and just kind of forcing it all into this, I guess, in order to kind of expose a layer of authenticity. But yeah, it was very different working this time around. For me, it wasn't so bad because I guess with our previous collaboration, a lot of the work was, you know, booking a room and making sure that we paid for it and that we made the money back, and health and safety and risk assessments and all that boring stuff. Whereas now the focus was completely internal on our process of working, our skill set, and developing those.
Thank you. And based on the creative solutions you've just mentioned that you found throughout the residency project, what advice would you give to artists who may be adapting or digitalizing their practice during this now very virtual climate?
What I can say is be patient, and I'm not patient myself, so it's really hard, especially with slow computers. But there are ways to create what you want. I know maybe people don't have the access to facilities, so they think, I just can not do digital art at home anymore. But as I was mentioning earlier, for example, you can glitch videos with Audacity, which is a free program that's really light. You know, anyone can have it on their computer. So it just depends on what you want to do. And if you research enough, you'll find a solution online to digital art.
Yeah, and also chop it down into chunks. Like, if your computer can't, you know, help you process a really complex 10-minute video, then maybe it can help you do a 1-minute video, and you can just do like lots of chunks of it. And even with music, for me, you know, it's quite daunting to think of composing something original for all these different kind of visual inspirations. So I would just have days where I would just work on little snippets and then eventually decide and linking them together, especially because my computer couldn't even run music programs at the time. It was just, yeah, it was the moment you have like more than 4 tracks in, it starts crashing. So yeah, there's ways that you can just like bounce and rebounce and just like build up upon stacks essentially. So yeah, bite-sized chunks is my advice.
Mm-hmm. And 2020 was such a defining year for digital and social media engagement, and Capsule.io touches upon this in the installation. With this in mind, why was it important for the project to be part of the social media landscape? And what was the thought process behind choosing Instagram in particular for the project's virtual gallery space?
So I know that we wanted to do this time capsule, so the whole plot was that. And obviously Instagram being a social media platform, if you don't delete it, or if you're not following community guidelines, they're going to delete your account. But it was an option for it for our project to stay forever, basically, on the internet. You know, if someone doesn't delete it, we can encapsulate and have our work there forever. Obviously, also we were talking about like using other programs, and it just led to Instagram, which was actually the best solution for us.
Yeah. And yeah, its ability to kind of host lots of, it is very visual, which I thought was good, especially for the videos. We just like that you can also post long form videos on IGTV, as well as have the sound as video, as well as create kind of a collage with the images that you're using. And also, I guess, I mean, we're both quite invested in it as artists. It tends to be the platform that you use to share your work, but also the platform that most people have turned to share their lockdown skills of like bread making and things like that, which we spoke a lot about, this kind of idea of authenticity and how social media is used. So we wanted to almost subvert it by creating something that was completely depersonalized and just existed of its own right without needing to kind of, I guess if its function is to end up being buried in the web for decades, then it doesn't care about like, hey guys, like, share and support. It's just kind of like, you can just dump in your memories into it.
Yeah, it just exists there. But also definitely, I forgot to mention the augmented reality aspect of our project. You know, we did the videos, we filmed some installations, we did the audio, but we really, really wanted to try augmented reality because for me, it was the first time doing it, and I knew I wanted to do it. And Instagram, above all the things we mentioned earlier, was the platform that allowed us to also have a filter, because Zuckerberg accepted my filter. So I was like, yeah.
Yeah, got rejected
Twice, yeah. So there's like community guidelines. Everyone read them carefully if you want to submit, because they don't allow a lot of things. I didn't do that because whatever, but I got accepted. And like if you go on the Instagram of the project, you'll see the filter there, and you guys can try it out as well.
Yeah, we're playing around with ideas of I don't know, 3D printing it and like painting it and then like burying it somewhere on Earth with like a little chip inside. But I think in the end we decided to keep it really digital, just because partly obviously environmental consideration, as well as as just it's, I guess it's more fun to create things like a filter that you can have, you know, you almost make the most out of the fact that it's not a physical object. Someone all the way across, you know, maybe in the middle of South America can whack it up, and it would be the exact same object in their augmented reality as in my augmented reality, as in Veronica's all the way in Aberdeen, as in Elizabeth's. So I guess, in that way we were trying to make sure that the digital wasn't just the compromise, that it was its own, it works for its own benefit as well.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying interacting with the Instagram already, and I've been listening to some of the personal responses on there. And I personally really connected to someone's idea that we often find it difficult being honest about our emotions as a complex relationship with authenticity. How do you plan for the Instagram to continue personal and honest responses to 2020?
That's
a heavy question.
Yeah. Well, the authenticity, we were talking about this earlier, you know, Instagram isn't always authentic. And this leads kind of back to my university research, because I find Instagram to be curated. And even if you don't think it is, it actually is curated, you know, people do that. But it's all about, like, our project, we want people to also interact with it. And hopefully we will be sent authentic replies and videos. We want people to submit their material so we can incorporate in this time capsule. Obviously, being the internet, if we post it everywhere, we probably would get a lot of weird stuff too. But we just have to see how it goes. The project will be open and kept alive for a bit, at least until it dies, maybe of natural causes. We don't know.
I mean, I think my dream would be that, as morbid as it sounds, that we die before it does. You know, that it kind of the way that your Facebook account isn't going to automatically get deleted, you know, once you pass away, that it stays on the web. You know, because part of conceptualizing the idea of the orb was the fact that, not a fact, but this kind of semi-fictional theory that, you know, before we're able to time travel, people will be able to beam data.
Oh well, we lost them. Anyway, If you want, I can reply to the other question and see what
Sure.
happens.
Whilst we're talking about the future of this project, has this residency lab been a springboard for new ideas in either of your practices? Would you apply any of the digital solutions you found to future projects? And has 2020 shaped your perspectives on the future of collaborative possibilities?
Well, seeing that I'm now alone, I have a lot to talk about this, so that's fine. So I can say for me, this project has definitely opened up a lot of, let's say, doors, because I really wanted to do augmented reality before. I really wanted to do 3D before. But between having a slower computer and no one really pushing me to do it, I wasn't looking into it as much. But because I was so invested in this collaboration, I really wanted to do my best and actually do what I was thinking about. So I started downloading programs like Blender, Spark AR. I've got some other Adobe ones. So I've been looking in all these programs to start doing different things. So basically, after extracting the 3D extrusion, I think it's called, from Photoshop of the screenshot of the video, I started manipulating it a little bit on Blender. So the latest 3D objects people will see on our Instagram is actually the 3D one I created on Blender. And I'm just happy I did this collaboration for sure. And this residency definitely taught me a lot of things that I will use in my upcoming virtual degree show for my 4th year of studies. I can now do a lot more there. I can use definitely the augmented reality, which is something I really, really want to do. But yeah, I don't know what Sam would say, but he's disappeared.
Is there any news on where Sam is or what's happened?
I don't know, I can give him a message. Sorry, guys. This is probably the fun part of having to do things where your Wi-Fi, you don't know if it really works or not until you start doing something with people there, and then it just doesn't work. And it works well every time when we were practicing. So,
shall I ask my final question?
That's it.
Okay, so Sam.
Oh, maybe that's Sam. Because I would like to reply to the last one with him, maybe.
Yes, sure. Okay, so I think we'll continue, and if
that's fine. I'm trying to see if he's there.
When Sam comes back, I'll ask him this question as well. So my final question is really, what's next as we move further into 2021 and continue to reflect on our feelings towards 2020? Do you see Capsule.io taking new directions?
Well, again, I'm going to reply on my behalf. And definitely, as we were saying earlier, we want to keep the project open because there he is. Yay.
Hello, sorry.
Hello, welcome back.
I got lost in the ether.
Right. We were actually I was replying to the last question, which was, what's next? Do you want to reply first? Because I already talked a little bit.
Oh, I wish I'd stayed out for longer. What's next? Yeah, I mean, we're not. I think what's next really depends on the collaborative aspect. I hope people engage with, and just for me, I would love if it turned into something completely different to what it was conceptualized as. You know, it's just continue to evolve in, and you know, if there are platforms that haven't even been invented yet that, you know, in a few years' time we're able to use, just keep it going. I guess it would be cool to experiment with the idea maybe for 2021, 2022, 2023. But I also like this idea of mythologizing 2020 as some sort of like super critical year for human history, which as we discovered, every generation has their year that they think like, oh my God, this has never happened before. And I guess this is ours.
Yeah, for sure. Something I was thinking to do, obviously, we were thinking of keeping the project open. So everyone go to the Instagram and have a look. You can submit your stuff. But also because you can have a QR code of the filter. So I haven't done this yet. But basically, I was thinking of printing the QR that leads directly to the Instagram filter and plastering it around Aberdeen. I wish I could do it all over the place, but for now I'm here. And seeing if actually people, strangers on the street will scan it and try the filter. That would be really cool, because then we would get engagement as well from people we have no idea who they are, you know. So that's something I'm going to work on probably.
no digital connections with or anything like that. And also just like shit posting it on like random places in the internet. Really funny.
Spamming everyone.
Just like deep in some random forum, and then you get.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the way that we tend to work is Veronica tethers me to the ground a little bit, because I'm kind of like, oh yeah, we could just like give out the login details and see what people do with it, you know, which I still think would be quite cool. But you know, at the end of the day, it would be sad if it got someone just an evil person just deleted all of it.
I don't think it's a good idea. I don't trust the internet.
Yeah, this is if you're going to get one thing out of our talk, it's don't trust the internet. So that was the last question.
Yeah, because he disappeared.
Can we dig through some of the questions from participants?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions. So the first one is, how did you go about your archival research? How did the images get incorporated into the works?
Okay, so basically, I had to prepare this. No, I'm joking. I always like using ready-made videos, so it's been ongoing throughout like my university years. It's something I've been doing, using other people's footage and glitching it, corrupting it, using different methods. So I recommend everyone go on archive.org. Maybe some people know about it. It's a free website. It's amazing. It's literally a time capsule of a website, because you will find BBC videos from the 1930s, and they have it on that archive, and you can download it for free and use it. So I started with looking in that website. So I've looked everywhere, because we were thinking between 2020 and 1918. I started looking throughout those dates and seeing what footage I found. There wasn't a lot of pandemic footage. Obviously, it's really early on. There wasn't a lot of cameras and stuff like that. I did find, however, some footage of a movie from the Soviet Union, 50s movie, but it was about a pandemic happened in the 20s. And I decided to use some snippets of that movie, because they were wearing masks and really weird sci-fi looking doctor clothes, which in Soviet Union were probably normal and fine to wear, but it was really weird. So I used some of that, and I was glitching it so much. And when we got to the final video, everything was so manipulated and distorted that you can't really even see that those videos were there, but they're definitely there. Yeah. And
do you remember I sent you that documentary that was like the pandemic in 4K or something?
Yes, vaguely. Yeah.
Because I feel like cool. I was like, oh, it's gonna be so sick. We're gonna chop this up, and then you just use completely new footage from the archives.
Yeah.
Because I guess do you find it easier to look for specific footage as opposed to kind of digging through like a long form video?
Yeah, and usually when you have like a documentary or a movie, there's copyright on it. So I know that technically, if you corrupt a file, you're making art out of it, so it's okay. It's not really like the copyright is not that bad. But obviously, if we're gonna go and see a documentary from the BBC and take loads of snippets from it, I don't know if it's the best option. While on archive.org, everything is Creative Commons, so you can use it with no like copyright infringement.
Yeah, maybe we should take out Matt Hancock's voice from the final.
Nobody knows, it's fine.
Oh yeah, of course, it's just a random robot.
Yeah.
Talking about.
Shall we see the other question?
So
how did the images get incorporated? I guess we kind of touched on the
yeah, so
it was.
Just manipulating, finding the footage. I get really excited and hyped up when I find cool vintage footage. I use it a lot in my techno visual sets. I use like old movies and stuff, so I thought I'd put it into this project as well, just to feel at home.
I guess that's another consideration we had, because for live stuff you can kind of do whatever you want, and get away with it. But once it's kind of digitized and put on the internet, then it's kind of like, oh, let me make sure that it's all copyrighted and I'm not, stealing samples from the wrong places and things like that.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, all the images that we used were created from the archives. We were going to film stuff ourselves, but again, it was by the time we started to work on it, it was like, don't leave your house.
Yeah, we had so many ideas of going out and filming, you in London, me in Aberdeen, all these like master plans that then lockdown
and all the people.
Yeah,
and getting videos from people that did interviews like all the way from Sri Lanka to have like really cool footage. But you know, you have dreams and then you have reality, sadly.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Screen fatigue.
Screen
Yeah,
fatigue.
so the next question is, what's your recommendations to combat screen fatigue whilst working at home, where it's hard to tear yourself away from your work to produce constantly for the social media machine?
Oh, it's very hard. Yeah,
That's a good question.
especially now, because we both had lectures and dissertation meetings and things where it was like, you'd have like 5 hours and then it's like, oh, do you want to meet for a Zoom call? Then we'd have an hour meeting and then it's like, okay, now we need to edit something for next week.
Yeah, my
where you can
eyeballs would be
spend up to,
popping.
literally just like burning with like veins sticking out of them. And yeah, so I mean, for me with music, sometimes because music is such an auditory thing, the screen fatigue really affects how you hear after like a few hours of composing. So I always have to get a drink or something and just go for a walk outside, go to like a park or something and just listen to it, looking at not a screen, because and it always sounds completely different to me. So so it's actually really cool when I export something, send it to Veronica, and then have it on WhatsApp, and then I just walk out and listen to it just on WhatsApp, and that almost changed how it sounded, and it allowed me to reconceptualize its relationship to the video, as opposed to just like forcing myself to keep working through. But it is really hard to, screen fatigue is just not, I don't know, I can't help
something like I was thinking of an answer for this, but something like my mom told me since I was a kid, because I was playing The Sims for too many hours when I was 8 years old, and she would come in and obviously not be happy with me. But she said, and she comes from the Soviet Union actually, so maybe it's like a Ukrainian thing, but to go and look at green, so look at plants, because your eyes need a break from the screen. So even for a little bit, just go, I don't know, look out of the window, you know, for 5 minutes, just give your eyes a bit of rest. And obviously like turn your luminosity a bit down on your computer. And I even ordered online, you can find them on Amazon, like green light. Those ones you had. So I don't use them as much, but they say they work. Didn't really work as much for me, but.
And I love using paper. I love using paper to sketch out ideas no matter what I'm doing, whether it's music or video editing, because that's I mean, one, it helps your ideas be a bit more organic, I feel. And two, it is just another break away from the screen. So I'd have lots of notebooks. I just rip pages out and just like scribble. And then eventually I can go back to the screen and feel a bit more organized. So I wouldn't like start work and finish something on the screen, because that definitely would overwhelm me. My poor eyes.
We have a third question. Do you think that these digital realms in which we find ourselves working just now could potentially be understood as a form of engagement art / public context ?
Where's this question?
It's so if you go to the Q&A.
Magic. Sorry, guys. That's my bad. I pretend I'm technological, but I'm not.
Engagement art. I think, I'm not sure what that question's asking, but it made me think of something. I think my relationship with things being so virtual has changed slightly. I feel like I'm an old man inside, so part of me is like, oh no, you know, like the idea of gigs and concerts online and stuff, I was very just like, this is Armageddon, you know, at the beginning of it. And especially with the VMAs all being done online, because part of me was thinking, I could really get into just like coding performance spaces for myself. But then it's like, there's no audience, you know? But I think what we've been able to do in adapting, it's been a year now, is force engagement through disruption, which is, I guess, what we try to do with our page, in that it's not just when you scroll through it, there's so many layers embedded within it, with the poetry, and there's like quotes that I put on random images, and there's interviews with really interesting conversations that aren't just like, oh, you know, the pandemic sucks. It's just because sometimes it, you know, gets into like the metaphysics of existence, death, and how, you know, the Western relationship with death and how that's kind of been brought to the forefront. So I think embedding those things in Instagram kind of goes against the like post-acute selfie and hope that the likes come up, in that the engagement it encourages is different. It's kind of not an immediate dopamine rush. It's more something you can sink your teeth into, as well as something you could then impact by collaborating with it. So you can kind of feel a part of it as well as not just immediately getting a full sense of it, kind of like an overload to begin with. So I don't know if that answers the question, but I guess I can definitely see a path in
I
that
think
regard.
it's engagement, if I understand the question correctly as well. I think that digital art and digital anything in between is pretty engaging, because you can actually send it throughout the world and have anyone interact with it. Obviously, going to a gallery and doing an exhibition in real life, there's a different type of connection. There's a human connection, obviously a physical connection. You can talk to people face to face, but with digital art and stuff like that, you can really spread it around the world, you know, by sending a link or something, and it can just reach anywhere on the globe. So in my opinion, it's pretty engaging, yeah. So.
And there's also crypto art as well, which is quite new and getting a lot of buzz at the moment. Where you can just like, buy and sell art with cryptocurrency, which has been like really threatens to change the game completely and has its own kind of ethical considerations. But I mean, that if there's anything that we've kind of discovered, it's that the sharing of digital art can be something that is both, you know, excludable and profitable, which is kind of the two things you want for art.
Yeah.
I think we just gave 5 wrong answers to the question.
Yeah, probably.
but it sounded cool.
Sam, whilst you lost connection, I asked Veronica if this Residency Lab has been a springboard for new ideas in her practice, and I just wondered what your thoughts were on that, and if,
yeah, for sure. My practice and even your things that I can do. I guess as we discussed, you know, sometimes for me, I have a background in film, so if I have an idea, it's kind of like, oh, you know, we're going to film it, try and get a crew, try and get a set, but knowing that that there are ways that I can completely destroy existing footage and turn it into something completely new and even abstract, because I really love the idea of these kind of 3D generated images. You can also have sound generated images and things like that. And now that I finally have a new laptop after like, I don't know, 6 years of saving up, it allowed me to work with After Effects, and moving forward, I definitely will take these skills and it's inspired some things that I really want to work with moving forward.
And actually, I've thought of another question. As you know, you both have background in live performance. Do you ever see this potentially entering that kind of presentation?
Mate, if this was like me 2 years ago in Aberdeen, I'd get like a projector to an after party and just like project it onto a wall while the music's playing in the background. Just like stare at it.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I mean, I would still love to project it in random places in public. I think that'd be really cool. If we could get it on a billboard, that would be ideal. If anyone's got those kind of contacts, any hackers that can, you know. But yeah, I think moving forward, even if we do a live event again, this experience will definitely have influenced how we construct the performance. Because I think when we first did it, it was just more like, it was all focused on the externalities of just making sure the venue was cool, and we had like all the technology to make it look, you know, like, oh, he's performing, there's projected stuff behind him, the audience is watching, the speakers are there, well done. Whereas now I think we will spend a lot more time thinking about the internal process of really creating something responsive and immersive with the VR.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, to be able to mix reality with digitality. So AR is augmented reality, but have it in a show. You know, people are physically there watching maybe something projected, and they take out their phone and they can see the 3D object on their phone, and also watch the projection in real life. So all these aspects, you know, of merging together the two worlds would be really cool. So maybe one day.
I guess it's like the Overton window. If the idea of completely having virtual parties online was abhorrent, then it makes the idea of people standing with VR glasses in a room together a bit more palatable. And for me, I think that would be really clever if they're like, I don't know, you turn into the CGI monsters performing and they're all just like, whoa, this is so cool. I think opportunities like that have now moved much closer, just because of how much we've all been forced to think digitally right now. You know, maybe for the better, maybe for the worse, I don't know. But I think we could definitely have a lot of fun with it.
Definitely.
Well, I think now it's time for the networking event. Thank you both for answering those questions. I really enjoyed hearing more about your work. So yeah, I invite everyone. Thank you. I invite everyone to stay and discuss in your tables and meet one another.
Thank you, Elizabeth, for being an amazing, incredible digital curator. For your first time, it was fantastic.
Oh, thank